The Sioux Uprising, also known as the Dakota War of 1862. This war was an armed conflict between the U.S. government and several bands of Eastern Sioux. The cause was because of the treaty violations.
The war comes as the result of a number of disastrous U.S. Indian policies. And the United States government negotiated treaties that dispossessed the Dakota of their land, and then consistently did not fulfill those treaty obligations. And these were contributing factors to the frustrations that ultimately boiled over in the summer of 1862.
I think the Dakota felt quite tired of what had been going on for the past 100 or so years. The winter of 1861 was really cold and harsh, so there wasn't much food. A lot of people were starving, especially the older men and women, as well as children. So they were in a lot of pain. Their annuities were late, so they were angry, and they were facing this great influx of settlers that were coming in and kind of crowding them in on their reservation. So they were overwhelmed, I'd say. You know, there were policies enacted that weren't really made to benefit the Native Americans. They were for the support of the U.S. government or for the settlers moving into that area. And so the buildup, you know, the breaking of treaty obligations was also felt elsewhere. It was just here that this really exploded in 1862. Well, one of the main contributing factors that led up to this war was the ineptitude and inaction on the part of the government. And this was manifested through treaty obligations that weren't being fulfilled, as well as agency corruption that wasn't being rectified. So a really big part of this was just the federal government wasn't doing its job to protect and help the Dakota people.
The Dakota War started on August 17, 1862. 4 Dakota men killed 5 settlers while on a hunting expedition.
Little Crow was a Mdewakanton chief. He's a third Little Crow down the line of our chiefs, Mdewakanton here. He was born here in Minneapolis area near Kaposia.
Well, he's just a fascinating person, and I think certainly he was a brilliant leader, but he was also very much a person sort of caught in a very difficult moment in history.
Said, the chiefs here, we don't want war. We don't want this war because there's too many of them out there. We won't have a chance to win this war. And as was said, you know, they called him a coward and different things. And so, as was mentioned, Little Crow said, Ta'oyate Duda is not a coward. He will die with you. And so, their original, and also Little Crow stated that he told the warriors that do not harm women and children, only kill the traitors that have been causing this stuff, that's been doing these things to us. And so when they went after the traitors, then it got out of hand, and they just went for it, and went to war for quite a while, several weeks.
Over the next several months, battles between the U.S. and the Dakota continued until the last battle at Wood Lake. In early December, 303 Sioux prisoners were convicted of murder and rape and sentenced to death. Lincoln personally reviewed the trial records. He was told over and over again to execute all 303 men, or else the white population would not respond well. In the end, Lincoln commuted the death sentences to 264 prisoners, but he allowed the execution of 38 men.
They brought the warriors, prisoner warriors out, and they made their peace with the Creator. They walked with dignity and understood what their journey was. They're going to be coming close to go back to the spirit world, and they as warriors accepted that. And so then they were marched up on a gallows with the rope hood over their necks and the ropes. Hundreds and hundreds of settlers from Minnesota went to the hanging, women and children, and they were all witness to this. And so at 12 o'clock, 10 o'clock in the morning, they were hung. And with one chop of the axe of the rope.
The hanging of the 38 Dakota men on December 26, 1862, in Mankato, Minnesota, remains the largest mass execution in American U.S. history. The men were buried in a trench in the sand of the riverbank.
Very obscure history that most people just don't know, myself included. I grew up here in Minnesota, and I never learned about this until I got to college.
For many people, there's a lot of surprise, maybe shock, sadness really at learning something new about Minnesota's history that just had been a bit, if not suppressed, at least had been ignored for a really long time.